Michael McAdams is the co-author of An Angel Told Me So, and it's about the spiritual life beyond. And Michael, this book that he put out, An Angel Told Me So, he put out as a co-author by Wilma Jean Jones and Michael McAdams. Wilma Jean Jones is his mother, who has since passed on. And wanted to talk a little bit of this morning about angels. And in a time where we are facing a crisis in this country, especially COVID-19, a lot of people are looking for inner peace and all those kind of things. And spiritual stuff comes up in conversation more times than not. Michael joins us this morning to talk about that. Good morning, Michael. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. I am fine.
Well, it's great to have you aboard this morning. Thank you so much. And I was really intrigued by this topic because, we talk about angels a lot. We have symbols of angels everywhere we look. We talk about COVID-19, the time that we're in, and about, some of the crises we have in this country. And it leads us to think more about spirituality. But in this book, you have messages from the spiritual realm that you talk about. And, kind of getting to some of this stuff. And there's a collection of teachings in there. Talk a little bit about the book and how you came to write it with your mother involved there, and where we go with this.
Well, the book itself is the first of 3 volumes. There's going to be 3 books in the series.
Okay.
And An Angel Told Me So was a collection of messages and teachings dictated directly from spirit teachers from the other side, dictated word for word through my mother, Wilma Jean Jones, so I know the source, and she received these messages and teachings for 22 years.
Now, you have a lot of people who are sitting there in that opening line going, yeah, right. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that before. What convinces you that went that way? Because there are a lot of people who say, well, I don't know about that particular thing, therefore it must not be true. You obviously are opening up another portal here to think about this. So take me from there on, what you get when you have people who sarcastically come at you or cynically come at you with that kind of attitude.
Well, we're all spoken to in one form or another. Religious people. I was brought up evangelical Christian. My grandmother was called to the ministry when she was 30, and she would receive messages. She would receive sermons dictated to her mind that she would write down and preach in church. She also received words to songs that she would put to music. Now, people with a religious perspective, I remember my grandmother always saying that God spoke to her heart. Mm-hmm. People who are more spiritual in nature, they recognize that spirit guides, spirit teachers, you can consider them our own guardian angels if you prefer, that they offer advice, direction, guidance, and support. I mean, we're not alone. We're not just on our own in this.
Sure.
But we have that pesky little thing called free will, and we can accept or we can go against any advice or direction that we're given.
Michael, it's amazing. You think about the number of programs and movies and things like that about angels coming here. I think of The Bishop's Wife, or I think about the Michael Landon series some years ago, or the different things where we talk about angels. We have a wishful thing about that. In our religion, many of our religions, many people who are Christian, say, well, I hope the Spirit moves a pastor to have a good sermon this Sunday. And the pastor will say, well, I was moved to have this sermon. And we talk about it, and yet if someone says, by the way, God talked to me today, we say, oh, he must be crazy, or they must be nuts, or whatever. So we have kind of a hypocrisy there for many people in a way where we say, yeah, okay, we believe in spirits except when we're supposed to believe in spirits. It gets kind of weird, doesn't it? And you kind of come in with this book, An Angel Told Me So, and attack it straight on, again, through the words and thoughts of your mother as kind of an intermediary. Is that correct?
That's true. And to me, the manner in which these messages and teachings were received, for me today, it's just an amazing body of material. But Wilma Jean would be led to sit down and receive. She had set up an electric typewriter in her kitchen.
Okay.
And she would light a candle, say a prayer, ask for protection, because you are opening your mind. And
Right.
when she was led to sit down and receive, she said that she would see 3 or 4 words just float into her mind and hang there. And they would not go away until she typed them. Once she typed those 3 or 4 words, they would just fade away, and 3 or 4 more would show up. That's how she received these messages and teachings in sessions that would sometimes take 3 to 4 hours to receive a message for her and a message for me in a session. But it's like these messages are woven with a universal thread. And everyone who has read these messages have said, well, this sounds like what I'm dealing with. This sounds like they're talking to me.
Do you think, and I've heard different people, and I've talked to different people in my lifetime who have, I hate to trivialize this, Michael, but they have like a sixth sense. They have a sense that maybe we don't have, that a lot of the rest of us don't have. And then there are others who may have that same kind of sense. And your mother was advised, I think, that she would work and encourage others who were open to this type of communication, maybe to develop that sensitivity and so forth, and began teaching classes on this, right, explaining that we all have kind of the innate ability to, quote unquote, tune in and receive not only for ourselves but for those whom we love. Is that correct?
That's true. And each of us, we have an innate ability, an ability that we're born with, to communicate with spirit teachers, spirit guides, angels, whatever name you prefer. And everyone, most everyone, is at the very least perceptive or intuitive. People read, people can read people. They see where someone's coming from. They can stop themselves from being taken advantage of. They can tell when people are sincere. And these messages and teachings, many of them are signed with the name of the spirit teacher that presented the message. On my website, spiritspeaks.com, there's a television interview that Wilma gave in Cincinnati. And I have posted a sneak peek from Volume 2 of the book. And this was the only time in a session where she was led to sit down and receive that 2 different spirit teachers moved in the same session, gave 2 different messages, and signed 2 different names. And it was obvious that the second teacher was a different teacher than the first because the whole cadence and phrasing of the message was different.
Michael McAdams is a co-author of An Angel Told Me So. And, Michael, I was asking before the break, you were talking about your mother and that she was a person who would get affected by spiritual teachers from beyond. We're talking about angels this morning, and again, an area that many of us may say, well, I don't know about that, therefore I don't really believe in it. But we're kind of opening it up this morning that you got a collection of messages, and that there were spiritual teachers on the other side. Who were these teachers? Did they identify themselves? How does that work? I'm not sure.
A lot of the messages are signed with names that they gave for themselves. A number of the messages are signed your loving guide, your loving spiritual teacher. There's a message that Wilma Jean received that was signed your spiritual counterpart. I have messages that were given for me that were signed your spirit brothers, your spirit light.
How would you describe being able to develop this kind of sensitivity? Because I kind of know what you're talking about. And I've heard other people talk about this, that if you're really, it's kind of like when we say get focused. Okay, you kind of get attuned to this. How do you do that? And how prevalent is this among other people? And obviously, there are courses taught on this. Your mother taught some things. How do you develop this sense?
And any time that you open your mind, you want to establish a filter of protection. There is evil and negativity out there, but it doesn't have to exist for you. And if you establish that filter, some people call it an aura of protection, and that you don't allow anything to come through that is not beneficial. And it's really just in the silence, they talk about the still small voice that speaks within.
Yes.
And my dad had retired in Bradenton down in Florida. I live in Dayton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And I would drive to Bradenton from time to time, straight through Georgia, 5.5-hour state, down I-75. The speed limit's 70. They'll give you 10. They may not give you 11, but they'll give you 10. So I had cruise set on 80. Right. And I'm riding along, radio turned off, not really thinking about anything. And a thought came into my mind, and it said, I'd slow down up ahead if I were you. I glanced in my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, but I reached on the steering wheel, touched the cruise, shut it off, let the car coast down to about 72, topped a little rise on the freeway, and there sat a Georgia State Highway Patrol.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not he would have pulled out after me, I don't know. But once I got past, I bumped it back up to 80, set cruise, and just said thank you. And that's the way it works.
Yeah. A lot of people kind of just shrug those off and say, oh, man, that's coincidence. And it's kind of interesting that I thought that or I had this come in. And yet, we don't think about the idea of maybe, saying, oh, okay, maybe I was getting a message. Maybe there was a guardian angel or something like that. People talk about guardian angels. Do you believe in guardian angels?
Well, I do. And whether you call them a guardian angel, whether you call them your own personal spirit guide or spirit teacher, there's a book called the Urantia book that talks about personalized thought adjusters.
Okay.
That we are assigned at the age of our first moral decision when we know right from wrong, usually around 4.5 years old. And I remember mine. I remember the decision that I made at that young age where I knew right from wrong. And they say that personalized thought adjuster, guardian angel, spirit teacher will accompany you and stay with you your entire life to offer advice, direction, and support.
Boy, that gives PTA a whole brand new meaning, doesn't it? SpiritSpeaks.com is your website. You've also got your own writings called Spiritual Parchment Prints. About 45 seconds left, Michael. What do you want people to take away from this? What do you want them to take away from An Angel Told Me So, this book that you have out? Tell us.
Just realize that we're not alone, that you have your own spirit guides, spirit teachers that will work with you and help you make decisions and guide you. You have free will. You have the ability to accept or ignore any of this advice. But realize that these bodies that we ride around in are just like riding around in our cars. These are vehicles that allow us to manipulate this physical plane. There is no death. It's just graduation. And that these messages and teachings are not only proof that a spiritual realm exists outside this physical plane, but here are communications in the form of messages and teachings dictated directly from spirit teachers who inhabit this spiritual realm.
An Angel Told Me So, a timely message of hope, and it helps readers who are seeking the light in dark times. Michael, fascinating interview this morning. I hope we can do it again sometime soon. I hope people will check out your website at SpiritSpeaks.com. That's SpiritSpeaks.com. Michael McAdams with us here this morning, and, of course, with his mother, Wilma Jean Jones. This book, An Angel Told Me So. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thanks, Gary. Nice talking to you.